The books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. He's an author and system analyst decoding the hidden complexities of modern life, from failing digital infrastructures to human decision making. No other than Mr. Adam Korga.
Hello, I'm happy to be here. My name is Adam, and I'm thrilled to tell a little bit about my process, let's say.
Yes, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Adam. Thank you. And today let's talk about your book, The F Almanac. So, what is all about? What is the core philosophy behind reclaiming and reframing the concept of the F? How is it different from just admitting failure?
It is kind of technical, almost technical term, at least in my philosophy, because certain level, scale of disaster deserves a little bit of profanity, let's say. But the core philosophy behind this is just to use those failures as a vehicle to educate and explain the technology and repeating patterns behind this as, in my opinion, more efficient than another success story that deserves mostly on luck, let's say, or in a big part on luck or combination of some factors that are difficult to reproduce.
Interesting, Mr. Adam. An almanac suggests a reference book, a collection of wisdom. What kind of wisdom is contained in catalogs of mistakes and how it organized for the reader to use?
Okay, so originally it started as a bunch of case studies from mostly IT, but not only, also from STEM engineering, like construction, civil engineering, some explosions and transportation and so on. But as I started collecting the really interesting stories, what went wrong, why it went wrong, and so on, I started looking for some pattern or narrative, and that emerged into four book cycle. Right now, the first is ready, almost ready to publish. It will be in March. The rest will follow, probably this year. But I decided that I wanted to use those to tell certain story about the technology and the human behind it, because ultimately the problems are usually human driven, let's say. And I started to think how to organize. So first book, volume, Digital Foundations of Modern World, is purely about, no, sorry, foundations of digital world, is purely about how modern IT works, what is on the very foundational level. I don't want to go too deep in the technical terms, but let's say compute, memory network, and so on. But I wanted to make it accessible to everyone, so I started looking for way to explain the concepts and use the failures just to clarify why it were why it's important to understand it, let's say. But at the same time, I didn't want to make it a IT manual. So I looked for stories that would be based and framed around in real consequences, like financial, sometimes mm, social media down, at least sometimes, unfortunately, also casualties. Of course, for casualties, I switched from to a little bit more sincere topics, but all the time to explain the mechanism, not necessarily not focusing on technology. Technology is just to make it understandable why it failed, let's say.
Understandable indeed. So, in a culture obsessed with curated success, and well, what are the psychological and social benefits of consciously studying or missteps rather than hiding or quickly reframing them?
Okay, so that we need to go a little bit into my philosophy. So, in my opinion, modern world is full of celebrating success, but there is a well-known mental bias called survivorship bias, where usually the success is can be motivating, but is very hard to reproduce because there's plethora of factors that cannot be repeated. While failure is always or almost always actionable data and much easier to reproduce, which I don't wish anybody. But if we're not prepared for certain scenarios, they will happen. It's you don't need. It's not about luck. It's not about the circumstances. These patterns will repeat and carry specific lessons. Also, studies show that learning from failure is very efficient. Of course, from own failure, it's more efficient than other people's failures, but not much more efficient. So, understanding those can be entertaining. There is some kind of cultural fascination with the failure, but more importantly, it is education. There is even the German word Schadenfreude, which is literally about entertainment factor of someone else's bad luck. I'm not promoting this approach, but I admit that this kind of cultural phenomena exist.
So, what was the specific app or series of them that made you realize there was a book here? Was it a moment where the shame or cause of hiding it become a greater than the risk of sharing it?
And actually, no. It was originally it was the idea of just a series of posts for promoting my previous book. But as I started collecting the information cases, I realized that there is something bigger. And well, first I had 150, I think, or something like that, various stories from various industries. And then I started noticing repeating patterns that sometimes it was IT, sometimes it was transportation, but the patterns and root causes were surprisingly similar. And I decided that it would be nice to collect this into some kind of educational narrative arc to present this in more organized fashion, but to make it more valuable from, let's say, education perspective, I decided that it needed to be as factually correct as possible, but at the same time accessible. So yes, everything is thoroughly researched. The sources are already available on the website. But I wanted to be this to be available and make the in first volume IT world a little bit more accessible to kind of break this nerdy spell. And so that maybe next time when there would be some news about some half the internet going down because of, I don't know, Cloudflare problems, which happened in recent weeks couple times, at least some people who don't have the technical background would understand what was going on. But as for specific uh, case, it wasn't one single case, it was purely the sheer volume of stories that have very common grounds, let's say.
This book requires radical self honesty. How do you decide what include and what to leave out? Was there a line between relatable F in something too private or damaging?
I didn't have this kind of uh, criteria. In fact, I even describe couple case stories from my own Burun files. Obviously, I don't have the sources for official reports for those, and the scale was much smaller, but I don't hide that I was making similar mistakes as well. So from this perspective, I don't have a problem. The one thing that I did, and I struggled quite seriously, was about gravitas of the case, because most of the book, all my writing is in rather sarcastic, humoristic, let's say beer talk tone, so to make it more digestible. But in some cases, when the human casualties death appears, it would be problematic to make jokes about that. That was the one thing that I was considering, but ultimately I decided that the more important aspect than funny or ironic jokes is the educational value and the lessons that could be dragged taken from those incidents, and I decided to keep them, but clearly mark them in the book graphically, and that the tone was changed to drop the casual, let's say, Manson's subtle art of not giving a book, or what if, humoristic tone from Randall Monroe, into more, let's say, journalistic reporting what happened, what was wrong, to pay the respect to the situation, let's say, and of course the people who paid the highest price. But besides that, I do truly believe that openness and honesty about the situation is the biggest value you can have, and especially in the current modern world, keeping this radical honesty and disclosure is the only way to build real trust, which, especially in IT, is very common and valuable in pretty much all engineering. It's not about avoiding the information about the disaster. It's more about being open. What would you do to make it, to avoid this in the future? Everybody knows that people make mistakes.
Yes, so Mr. Adam, thank you for that empowering answer. What are your short term and long term goals as an author?
So as short-term goal, the main goal and the absolute must-have for me is to finish the series this year. That requires quite tight schedule, but I truly believe that I can fulfill to release one volume every quarter. In the long term, I'd like to expand this a little bit, because this is just a foundation to something hidden behind about the systemic thinking, because spotting those patterns, spotting those similarities requires specific way of noticing similarities between totally different industries, and also learn how to recognize those patterns in the new areas. So I do have some plans or ideas for the follow-up books or series after the F Almanac. And definitely I won't be able to do this year, so it's not a short-term goal. But by the end of next year, I'd like to continue with going a little bit more into, on one hand, system thinking, second, focus more on what are those mental traps or thinking patterns that make us repeat the same mistakes over and over again? Why we do these kind of cases? And that would be diving into survivorship bias, perverse incentives, and a couple other well-documented mechanisms.
Yes, and good luck to your goals. Mr. Adam, good luck. And can you please recommend a book of books that influence your journey?
So definitely, I would say there is a solid collection of books that I really value. Two of them I already mentioned, What If by Randall Munro and Subtle Arc of Not Giving F by Mark Manson. What they do have in common is that they use very light, very approachable tone, almost casual, humoristic beer talk tone to extract and digest very specific, very concrete terms. Especially the What If by Randall Munro is interesting in this case, combined with Freakonomics by Dubner and Levitt, I think it's called. It's pronounced, sorry if I did it wrong, where the authors use light tone to make the very serious and sometimes quite boring for most people topics like economics or physics more approachable and basically popularize this science. One more book that I could mention here, which is much more, which would be difficult to to find. It would be English title would be Statistically Speaking. However, as far as I know, it is available only in Polish. So the original title is Statystycznie rzecz biorąc by Janina Bąk, which is pretty much the same philosophy, but about introducing statistics as something that can be interesting. So those would be definitely books that I really value. I've read each of them a couple times, and I like to think that I'm doing similar thing for IT and STEM engineering in general. I'm not sure if I'm at this level, but well, if I'm comparing myself, I like to aim high and maybe I will succeed.
Well, thank you for the recommended books, Mister. And can you please give a piece of advice for those people out there who want to be an author like you?
So I'm not sure if I can give great advice, but I really what I've learned so far is one to believe that you have something to say. Second is to not to try to collect or organize what you already know, and once you have some notes, even if it seems random at first, let the story find emerge on its own. I believe that it can be much more honest and valuable this way than trying to fit the narrative to upfront prepared thesis or narration. At least for me, it works really good, and I really think it's more, well, like I said, honest.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that advice, Mr. Adam. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, if someone holding a secret, shameful F that is eating them alive, what is the first exercise or prompt from the almanacs you'd give them?
Um, could you repeat the question? I'm not sure if I understood.
Yes, if is someone holding a secret, a shameful F that's eating them alive, what is the first exercise or prompt from the almanacs you'd give them?
I'm not sure. I would definitely could explain, or I believe that they already know how bad a habit it is, and I would suggest to consider pros and cons. And as far as I know, it's very shallow, but at the end of the day, any forcing or convincing usually doesn't work. So it's their decision, their choice. I can only provide data and let them decide.
Yes, let them decide, people. Let them decide. And if the book succeeds, what is the shift do you hope to create in how we talk about success, failure, and the messy journey of life?
For me, the most important is belief that, or one, openness and clear communication. And the value, I'm not sure who said that. I know that it's very frequently attributed to Einstein, but everything is attributed sooner or later to Einstein. That if you can't explain something simply, then you might not understand it really. So, my main value would be to focus on clarity of the communication rather than sounding smart. That's how I like to explain things. And from my experience, the most problems is on the communication level itself. So a little bit of humor doesn't hurt, but openness and clarity of communication, that's something that I'd like to help building in general. If it's successful, that would be a great win for me.
Mr. Adam, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in sixth season as well. Comedy 101 in third season, and my food 101 in sixth season as well. Geography 101, love letters, movie 101 review, music 101 in fourth season, science 101, sex 101 in third season, and my baby podcast, trivia 101, law 101, mental health 101, motivation 101, entrepreneurship 101, and of course, my Bible verses 101. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, looking back at the end of your life, what do you hope your own F almanac will ultimately reveal about a person you become?
I just hope that people would understand that I'm much more into educating than complaining, even though, well, I like complaining as well, of course.
Okay, that'd be awesome, Mr. Alam. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world through your almanac. So, can you please
Thank
invite the
you.
listeners to support your books?
Well, I strongly invite everybody to check my website, to check blog to see my thinking behind all of that. And especially right now with the F Almanac, I'm looking for early readers. I'm super happy to involve people if they are interested in the beta reading process. And it's always nice to have the feedback on open as early as possible. And well, I hope that people would like what I'm writing.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Adam because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering almanac will rise. So, Mr. Adam, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
More to come, people. See you soon.